Hi guys, this is Meenu. Welcome again to my channel Storytale. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my most disappointing reads of 2021. Disclaimer, these are not the books that were released in 2021, just the book that I've read into 2021. I've read mostly good books in this year. That is why I do not have a big list of disappointing books, just the top 5. So let's just get on with it. The 5th book on my list is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. There was just so much hype around this book. Everyone was praising this book so much as if this book is worthy of a Booker Prize. But when I read it, I was so disappointed. I mean, there was nothing great about this book. It was okay. And the most disappointed that I was with Carden's character. If you do not about this book, the story is about Jude and Carden. Jude is basically human in this fairy world where she was kind of brought forcefully by her stepfather. She has been trying very hard to fit in this world. She and her sister are the only humans in this world. There are so many tricks and cruelties that Carden does against them, and I think that is the worst part, that we're celebrating a hero who was so much cruel to them. But anyway, this is basically a journey of Jude from becoming this weak human to becoming this person who is very strong and who takes everything in her control, even though she's just a mere human in this land of fairies. Carden is just a bully in this book, and he's also the main love interest. I really hated his character. He was very cruel. He was very mischievous. There are certain scenes here and there which makes him a little bit human, but still there were just so many scenes of him that was just making me angry and everything. The only redeeming quality that he get is in the next book, in The Wicked King, where I actually end up liking him. But in this book, the first book, I did not like him at all. He was not a smart person. He was very much, mischievous and not just brilliant. He was just dumb in this book. That is why this book was so much disappointing to me, because I did not like the main character. The story was okay. The other characters were okay, but the main characters were not that good. So that is why this book was so disappointing. The 4th book on my list is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. This is again one of those books that can be amazing if it had a little bit more, but it's just disappointed because it was trying to be something that it was not. This book could have been my favorite this year because it has such a strong storyline. The synopsis was just good, but the lack of depth was kind of what disappointed me. The story is about Nella. She was in, I think, late 18th century, and she was this apothecary. Apothecary is basically an art or knowledge of poisons, of medicines, of herbs and everything, and Nella is our apothecary. She does her business in secret because at that time women did not have much of a freedom. That is why she conducts this business, and it is only for female. Basically, she provides poison to women who are abused by their husband or their family members, and there are 2 rules that she has to abide by, which was set by her mother. The first rule is that she has to mention the names of the women who comes to her shop to buy things, because she wants to give these women an identity. She wants to leave their mark upon this world. And the second is that she cannot use the same potion or same poison to harm another female. So that are the 2 rules that she has to abide by. Like I said, this is such an interesting plot. This is such an interesting thing that they could have worked upon. But then we get to the story of Caroline, which is in the present day London, and that's just where the boring stuff begins. The author tries to give us a parallel storyline with both of these women. She was trying to show us how both of these women are in the same situation, but still Caroline's storyline was not that interesting. I really loved Nella's storyline, but it also needed more of the storyline of the women who are actually coming to her to buy these poisons. I really wanted their backstory. I really wanted their story a little bit more, but we did not get that. That is why this book is so disappointing, because it could have been such a great book, but it just turned out to be a mediocre one. The 3rd place on my list is a tie between Blood and Honey and Gods and Monster by Shelby Mohereen. These 2 are the 2nd and 3rd installment of Serpent and Dove series. I really loved the first book in the series, Serpent and Dove. I really loved the dynamic between Lou and Reed. I really loved their banter. I really loved their storyline. I loved their chemistry and everything. But everything was downhill from there. Serpent and Dove series is basically a story of Lou, who is a witch, who is trying to live in this world, who are against witches who just want to murder them, and also of Reed, who is a witch hunter who is trying to get this world to get rid of witches. So both of their stories were very interesting to read. Especially Reed was one of my favorite characters because he was so much polite. He was this person who is very proper and everything. He's a perfect gentleman, and Lou is totally opposite of him. She is more outspoken and everything. So I really loved both of their dynamic. I really loved their story. But from the second book, we do not get that, at least until the end of the third book. That is where we get to see a little bit of their dynamic, the dynamic that we loved at least. The second book, Blood and Honey, kind of felt like a filler to me. There were just so many stupid things that were happening. It was just a stretch of a book. There was nothing big going on. By the end of the second book, the character ended up in the same place that they ended up in the first book. For me, the second book was the least important book in the series. The third book, at least the first half, was very disappointing. I really loved it from the second half. The second half, it did pick it up, but the first half was very disappointing. And the most disappointing thing about this series is the second and the third book are 600 pages long. So there was not much story to tell, and still somehow the author thought that it was okay to stretch it for 600 pages. It could have been easily ended up around 400 pages, at least in my opinion. But anyway, both of these were such a big disappointment after Serpent and Dove, because I really loved Serpent and Dove. The second book on my list is The Last Graduate by Naomi Novik. I was so excited about this book because I did like the first book. It was not a great book or something, but still it was something that you can actually love. I really love the dark academia type of a theme. It was very interesting to read. It was actually my first time. That is why I loved it. I'm pretty sure there are much better books in that category. But still, I really liked it. Even though there was a lot of info dumping in the first book, I still thought that it was an okay read. It was something that I can actually look forward to. And I was really looking forward to this book. And that is why I pre-ordered this book. But of course, it was such a big disappointment. It was worse than the first book. I mean, there was so much of info dumping. And it's not just the info dumping. There was nothing happening in this book. Nothing, absolutely nothing great happened, at least until the last few chapters. But at least like 2/3 of this book was like such a snooze fest, to be honest. Like, we just get the perspective of Elle. She was talking about enclaves, she was talking about Orient Lake, and Orient Lake is actually what I wanted you to read about. The plot of this book is about Elle, who lives and studies in this school which is filled with monster. This is a school which has danger almost in every corner. This is a witch school, so all of these kids are trying to learn spells and everything, but they are also fighting for their lives because there are real monsters in every corner of this school. They have to fight every monster every step of the way, and they're actually comparatively safer in this school than the outside world, because the outside world is also filled with monsters. That was, I think, the most interesting part about this book, because this school was so dangerous, and that is what intrigued me in the first book. But in the second book, there were not many monsters and there were not much happening in this book. Orient Lake is basically the savior of Elle. He saves her so many times, and in this book, Elle is the one who's saving him. I really thought we would get more perspective on Orient, how he's so badass, how he's able to kill all these males when everyone has actually failed, and he's someone who seeks monster, he seeks to kill them. So how he's such a badass, how he's such, indestructible. So that is what I wanted to see. This book was all about Elle and what she was doing and what other students were doing. What are the enclaves, what is happening in the enclaves, that is all. It was just all talk and everything is in just her head. For many pages, there was not even a single dialogue. We were just in Elle's head. That is all. That is all we get in this book. But the ending was so good. That is why I'm going to pick up the last book in the series, which is, I think, The Golden Enclaves. And I'm going to pick that up too, because I'm really excited to read that, because I am hooked a little bit to the characters, and I'm especially hooked to Orient. I really want to know what actually happened to him, from how and where he's so indestructible. So I really want to read that. That is why I'm going to be picking up the last book too. But anyway, this book was such a huge disappointment, and I really hope that the third book did not disappoint as much. Now the top and the most disappointing book of 2021. This book is something everyone loved for some reason. I just do not understand why. Maybe it was marketed so well, that is why everyone loved it. But there was nothing much in this book to actually love. I do not know why it was even nominated in Goodreads Choice Award. I mean, there were of course many better books compared to this one. I just do not know why it was happening. I do not know. Maybe the Goodreads works on marketing and everything. I do not know. It is a little bit controversy. I do not know if you're one of those people who actually loved it or one of those people who actually hated it. But I just kind of hated it, and I was really disappointed. The book is Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. This is the second installment in the Last Hour series. I was in love with the first book, Chain of Gold. It was my top favorite book of 2020. I was in love with the characters. I was in love with the story. I was in love with the era, London and everything. It was just perfect for me. But this book did not have the same charm that the first book have. It is based before the Monster Instrument series and after the Dark Artifices series. It has more of the same world, just the story and everything is a little bit different. The style is a little bit different, so that is something fresh for me. I really loved that in the first book. The best thing about the first book were the characters: Matthew, James, Alistair, Cordelia, Lucy, Anna, and there were so many other characters which I absolutely loved. And that was what kept me hooked to the first book, and that is why I ordered this book. It was also pre-order, and I thought that maybe I'm gonna love the same thing because I really loved the characters. I was really hooked to their love and storyline. But in the second book, everything just went to hell except for Anna's love story. I really loved her and Adriana's storyline. I think that was the most interesting part. I also loved Alistair and Thomas in this book. They were also amazing. But other than that, other books were just not that great. James and Cordelia were the least favorite part of this book. Their love story was very bland. At the beginning, they were a little bit interesting, but their love story did not grow for me that much in this book. Even the ending was not satisfying for my liking. There was so much of communication gap between both of these characters, and I really hated when adults do that. I can understand that when kids do that or they have that communication gap, but adults are very much capable of communicating, and I think that could have been dealt well in this book, but did not. Even Matthew, that I was looking forward to the most because I really loved his character in the first book, and I was really worried that he was done a lot of injustice in the first book, and the same thing happened in this book too. Everyone is just not aware of his drinking problem. Nobody cares about him. Everyone just treats him like nothing. He's just there as a side character. I really hate that. And even in the ending, they was just not satisfying for my liking. I did not like what happened to the three main characters in this book. Lucy's storyline was okay for me. I liked it. It was not something great, but I was not angry with it. And even Grace was much better, but still her storyline just felt like a stretch, just page filling, because most of the things that we have already figured out in the first book were shown again in this book. So that was not necessary, though I am really looking forward to her love story with Christopher. That is something that I'm really looking forward to. But other than that, this book is just so disappointing. I really hope the last book in the series, which is The Chain of Thorns, is much better and it gives me some kind of closure or something great with the character, and especially Matthew. I really want some justice to done to him. So I just want that story, and I really hope Cassandra Clare does not disappoint me with the third book. So that was it, guys. That was my list of the most disappointing books of 2021. If you have any disappointing books, do let me know in the comments down below, or if you have any favorite books, do let me know that too. And if you like this video, do hit subscribe and click that bell icon if you want to get notified of my future videos. I will see you again. Bye.